Well, we are just 12 days away from the 2024 presidential election, and a new national poll has former President Donald Trump now ahead of Vice President Kamala Harris. Not by a lot, but ahead. The Wall Street Journal poll shows Trump with a 2-point lead over Harris. That is still within the margin of error. So again, it's tight. And with the race so close, we know that that date's going to be here before we know it. Both candidates trying to get their message to voters, what you've heard me call their closing argument. Vice President Harris had a huge opportunity last night. And you heard Mr. Wonderful, Kevin on the couch, saying that she potentially missed at least some of her opportunity last night during CNN's town hall. But even CNN's own panel says she came up a bit short.
She focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do as president.
I'll just tell you what I'm hearing from people who I have been talking to, and that is that if her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that. The question about her legislative priorities, name one. There wasn't one.
The thing I think that kind of got her tripped up at certain times was when certain voters were asking to drill down actually on some policy, and she didn't want to go there.
When she doesn't want to answer a question, her habit is to kind of go to word salad city, and she did that on a couple of answers. One was on Israel. Anderson asked a direct question, would you be stronger on Israel than Trump? And there was a 7-minute answer, but none of it related to the question he was asking.
I think that the word salad stuff gets on my nerves. I think that some of the evasions are not necessary. There's flashes of the person that I know, and then some other stuff, it got lost in the sauce.
Well, I tell you, David Axelrod put some stuff on people's minds. I mean, he's a smart analyst. We know that from his background. But Kayleigh, the idea that Kamala Harris is word salading us it sounds from him that it's on purpose. I know it's now a verb.
It's a verb. I know that's right.
ING.
I do not understand it. Look, she had a fine debate against Donald Trump with 2 moderators who were very much on her side, right? That's not an easy environment, and she excelled in it. But it just defies my mind. Like, why can't she just answer a question? Last night, Anderson Cooper looked at her and just said, what's a mistake you made in life? And what did you learn from it? Now, look, I admittedly get nervous when Greg Gutfeld does the fastest on the 5, and he'll ask me a question. If you were asking, I'm like, I got to come up with something on the fly. But, like, you can do it, especially on an easy question. Like, tell us about a mistake. Like, come on, you made a mistake somewhere. She could not answer the question. And when CNN, David Axelrod is criticizing you, and Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, you've lost the plot when you've lost CNN, and then you have no major game-change moments next. Where's your next game-changer moment? Your speech on the ellipse where you're going to talk about January 6th? Good luck.
Wow. Kevin.
You know, imagine my dilemma. I'm an investor. I have to work with government no matter what happens on the 5th. I want her to be a successful president if she wins. I support entrepreneurship, and that is a nonpartisan issue. You know, it's bipartisan in every way. What I would like to do, and I know, I mean, this is probably going to fall on deaf ears, but there's a bunch of things in her policy that I would like to talk to her about. I want to interview her because we've moved away from the things that matter towards maintaining the American dream, which is the only job the president has. The real job of the President of the United States is to maintain our #1 export, which is the American dream, and that encompasses all aspects of government, defense, including immigration. But think about the discussions we had about raising corporate tax rate to 28%. We're not talking about that anymore. That takes America down to the bottom quartile.
Why do you think she's not talking about it anymore?
Well, because I'm not interviewing her. I mean, somebody else has let her getting away with a bunch of stuff here. I want to talk about price gouging in an industry of grocery where margins are 3.5%.
How she's going to do that without pressuring companies.
There is no way she can deliver on the 3 million homes because this is zoning state by state. It's not a federal mandate. And she should take my interview because it'll help her. It'll help her be able to communicate.
Have you offered?
No, I'm doing it right now.
Okay, well, we know they watch. It's the #1 show in daytime on cable. Emily.
Yeah, I to take that ball a few yards further, I think, frankly, she doesn't have the intellectual capability to keep up. And what I see in her is an influence clearly by academic bubbles, people in academic bubbles that have no real-world experience. First of all, we know that she is continuing to plagiarize. We haven't even brought this up yet, but just to hammer home that a sitting vice president who has made her way through the ranks of senator, attorney general, DA, these things she touts, is still using plagiarized language from other people's work. She is still failing to, again, draw from experience in these roles because there is none. Because what she simply does, I see, is parrot what someone tells her, what some academic, conceptual person tells her without real-world experience. She's never made a overhead. She's never made payment. I mean, there are things in the real world, the instant that you are in the real world and earn your own money, that you know. So even the policies the other day, remember when she said she was going to blatantly be unconstitutional with the forgiveness of certain loans and only helping black males. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's a joke that someone of the caliber of her office truly fails to understand the law or the real world whatsoever.
And speaking of that, even last night, when she was asked about, taking actions on issues, she delivered an answer about, I'm going to maybe not be immediate. I'm going to have to study this. I'm going to look at it more. And she has been the vice president. She's been a senator. She's been a district attorney. She's been an attorney general. And you know the issues you're supposed to. But I'll remind everyone that they were relying on slogans. At first, it was Brat. She had the Brat campaign. Remember that? And then
that feels like years ago.
That was years ago. Happy Warrior.
July.
Now it's turning the page. Slogans don't put food on the table. And I think that when you're looking at the nature of the argument about, she just still only talks about Trump. From the start, she has. He is defined. They've done it. And Americans love him anyway. We love him anyway. We're not denying anything. We're not pretending. We love him anyway. They now needed her to do something else in that regard. And I think that most Americans thought, if you're the nominee, you've been vetted as a serious person. They learned that that's no longer the case when it comes to what the Democrats have done.
Well, she wasn't the nominee. She was a person they put in place of the nominee. So that speaks, so much about why people don't feel like they know her as well. I hope you get your interview. It'll be tough, and we'll finally get to learn something. I hope it can happen before November 5th.
I would help her. I would help her. I want her to be successful.
I know you want to help her, but if it's Donald Trump, you can do business with him, too.
I already know him.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.